Feral Druids have just been buffed this week, and low-key, it's kind of a crazy buff. It was thought to be something pretty chill and minor, but it's looking to be pretty significant, at least from the numbers so far, which is really wild. And I really want to talk about that, but also just get your guys' opinions on it and just catch up, because I haven't talked to all of you guys in a while. So Griftin, I've never had you on the podcast, so I'm really glad to have you here. Well, you can introduce yourself first, actually, then, because you're brand new to the cast.
Sure. I'm Griftin. I am a feral YouTuber. That's pretty much all I cover is feral druid. So this is right in my wheelhouse. I'm pretty sure I get about 90% of the credit for this happening. If anyone wants to argue with me, come at me. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I talk about ferals. That's pretty much all I do. Yeah.
Hell yeah, you're gonna be the guy everyone's about to your channel's about to blow up. Everyone's
already. It's been crazy, and I know they talked about this earlier, but everybody is rolling their alts, or hey, I had that alt sitting in the back. You know, I haven't really been playing it, and now they're like, oh, I'm trying to think about switching to main, and all the ferals that abandoned their class and went warlock or whatever are now like, well, maybe I'll go back. Which is really cool for the community, because there was definitely like a depression sinking in for the ferals, because yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's, to be serious, like I just boosted a feral. Ferals seeming to be so incredibly strong that it's like worth it. Like you should have everyone get a feral. Everyone, like, it's gonna be ridiculously viable. And we'll get into more numbers.
I don't know if you want to talk about the ICC stuff yet, but yeah, that's it's definitely going to be really interesting to see if they don't touch us.
Yeah, which we'll get into in a second. Bob, welcome to the stream. BlazzinBob, welcome to the stream. How you doing, brother? Thank you for coming on. I know it's kind of last minute. How are you doing? How's life?
I'm doing good. Turns out, I was here, and Rugs couldn't come, so, here I am.
Yo, well, that's perfect. You're better than Rugs. We do have an exclusive premiere of Rugs's videos about his video about the feral changes that will play a little bit early on, that he sent me. He put together last night with another content creator who he hasn't said who it is, and he told me not to watch it until we're here live. So we'll check that out soon.
Cool.
Can't wait.
Yeah, and Griftin, did I link your YouTube correct? Your YouTube is Griftin. Wow.
Yeah.
Is there an underscore, or it's just Griftin?
No, that's his. Yeah, I use the @ now, but yeah.
Boom. Everyone who wants to learn feral, go watch Griftin. Wow. Because you're going to want to become really good with feral and understand all of these changes. Simonize, welcome to the stream. Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here. The camera's not quite coming through yet.
Totally fine.
My chat's trying to help me at the same time. I was doing a bit of a crash course on these feral changes. I'm looking forward to learn a lot from you, Griftin. I was watching your own videos about it, too. Figure out what the heck is going on. I mostly do rogue stuff. We've got energy too, but it's not really the same.
I feel like if you're a rogue, you're gonna really like the change they made to feral. It's just so fun.
Hold on. One of the things I understand is that ferals are now simming like 2,000 DPS ahead of me in Ice Crown Citadel, which that part, I'm not sure how much I like that part.
All right, don't trust the Sims 100%.
Why not? Okay, wait. You're just trying to like have them not be nerfed, or
that's part of it, but also like. So the Sims are pretty good. The problem with Sims usually, and I don't want to misspeak for the Sim people, but like trinkets are usually they do them one at a time, because trinkets have like odd procs, things like that. Mm-hmm. And tier sets sometimes work a little bit differently. They're not usually like game changing, like, oh, you just lost 800 DPS, but we don't know. And we don't even know if they figured out the best Sim rotation yet, because it's brand new. So yes, it looks promising. Give it a couple of weeks before we like lock in that 17K. But yeah, either way, but you're right. I'm trying to be very like optimistic, but also realistic. It feels really good to even now.
Yeah.
compared to what we were doing before.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah.
well, let's just like jump right into that then. Right now, your experience with it so far. Actually, can you describe the changes? And yeah, that would be the best for anyone listening or who doesn't know.
Okay, so I have to go back a little bit. I'm gonna actually go to talk about private servers too.
Mhm.
So the concept of what they changed was we have a spell called Fairy Fire. But we also have a spell called Fairy Fire Feral, which can only be used in feral form. That version and only that version now procs the clear casting proc that you get from Omen of Clarity 100% of the time. Now, if you compare this even to private servers, it was never 100% of the time. It was much lower. I don't know what the percentage was. So this is actually a slight buff above private servers to give a comparison.
Mhm.
Now, what this does is they also, sorry, I want to back up. They also removed Gift of the Wild procking. If you don't know what that is, when you are in a 25-man group and you cast Gift of the Wild, the Omen of Clarity clear casting proc was almost 100% guaranteed. So you had pre-pull, you would do a Gift of the Wild on the whole raid so that you would always have an Omen of Clarity on your start. And then also people that were doing gift weaving, they would shift out of form, cast a Gift of the Wild, and then shift back to get a free feral damage ability. That's gone. They just actually eliminated that completely. So you no longer get an Omen of Clarity proc from Gift of the Wild. Those two changes have forced cats to stay in cat form as opposed to going bear weaving or gift weaving.
Mhm.
If you don't know what bear weaving is, essentially it's when your energy is low, you can go into bear form, your energy will continue to regen while you're in cat form, and you could do bear abilities to maintain your DPS, and then go back into cat form when your energy gets close to full, and then continue the rotation. But because of the Feral Fairy Fire, it procs so often, you don't really get the opportunity. People are still trying bear weaving and trying to find like opportunities for bear weaving, but right now the current meta is just stay cat form the whole time.
Yes.
I will say though, thank God. So I play one of my mains is a tank, and I hate bear weaving because it's just a pain in the ass with freaking threat, right?
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk threat. So that was another reason they brought up. They said, hey, threat is an issue. We want to get rid of bear weaving because threat.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to front load you with a bunch of threat at the beginning of your rotation. And as long as you're in a competent tanking group, like a group that like, you know, does their misdirects and things like that,
Mhm.
it's not that big of a deal. But every pug you're going to join now, you're going to pull threat. Like, I cannot tell you how many paladins I've joined a group with and said, hey, can you sell me? And they say, I don't have that. That disappeared in TBC. And you're like,
Well,
so
because of the threat, sorry to interrupt you, but just to like explain it to everyone, a lot of the issues with threat was because you were having to go into bear form as part of your rotation beforehand and use abilities in bear form, and you have a threat multiplier, right? So that you would just grab a ton of that and you would end up pulling aggro on the boss. And now that's not happening, right? So like just to clarify.
Yeah, so maybe to go into a little bit deeper into bear weaving, when you shift into bear, you actually apply lacerate because for one, lacerate is your best DPS over time, and two, with the tier set, it can actually help you proc your Omen of Clarity because the tier will allow any of your bleeds, including lacerate. So you get your lacerate up. The problem is lacerate maintains the threat it generates when you're in bear form, generating even more threat over time. Plus, every time you're in bear form, you have a threat multiplier, and you're doing mangle and maul, mostly maul. But when you refresh your mangle, you always want to do it in bear form in the past because you didn't want to use energy on an ability that you could apply with bear form. So all that is just threat. And then you also you stack berserk on top of that, and it's insane threat, especially that that first 20 seconds. So they got rid of bear, but now because of the Omen of Clarity procs, we still have a big threat push at the beginning. Once you get over that hump, it's usually fine. Like once the tank is established threat, you're usually your number 2 threat, but you're like good enough that but yeah, if you pug, you're gonna pull. That's just
even now.
How it is. Even before, yeah.
Well, and if you get hysteria on pull, like you're gonna really pull.
Yeah, and I mean, the cool thing is if you're getting Hysteria, that usually means you've got a blood tank, and they have the best single target threat in the game, so they're spamming Icy Touch, so that's not a concern. If you're getting Hysteria against a Paladin tank, like it's 2 tank, yeah, it's going to be a little dicey.
Yeah.
That's why, guys, you give it to the combat rogue, and he will tricks you back.
This is really just a campaign to get the Hysteria buff. I see how it is.
That is, yeah. Simon, can you hear us now? Because we can see you. You might be muted.
He'll get it. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
He's got this.
Still muted. It's okay. It's okay. One day we're going to hear the good old technicals.
No, we can't hear you, man.
But that it's crazy to see like the change in the spec, and Feral Druid is probably the one spec that's been weirdly theory crafted forever throughout Classic's history, so hard for like the most minimal amounts of damage, right? Like back in the day, you had to do the dumbest
well, even
shit,
now,
yeah.
like, do you know what snake weaving is? Do you,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Do you guys
you
know? Like snake weaving. I mean, I know shaman do it too. We've got snake weaving, bear weaving, gift weaving. We had the back in the day, you had manual crowd pummeler. You had the wolf's head helm. I mean, trolls, the trolls blood thing that came up in TBC. Like, we are the kings of figuring out the dumbest ways to DPS.
Yes.
But yeah.
Wait, okay. I'll let you actually explain snake weaving, because I'm glad that they didn't actually change, because they recently changed the interaction with the meteorite crystal, the trinket from Algalon, with snake weaving, but they didn't change it for ferals, which was good.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of people were really scared, even though it's even at the time before they did this change. I mean, now it's almost useless for most classes, but yeah. So what snake weaving is man. I did a whole video on this to try to explain it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
When you are in caster and bear form, your swing time is based on bear form. You have a set swing time of, I think it's 2.5 with haste speed up, and then your swing timer in caster form is the base, the swinging speed of your weapon minus haste speed. When you go to cat form, it starts at, I believe, 0.7 seconds, or no, it's 1 second and then speeds up. I'm pretty sure. Doesn't really matter. Regardless, when you're in cat form, your swing timer is much faster. However, when you go from one form to another form, until you do a first initial damage, it maintains the swing speed of your old form. So if you go from caster to cat, you still have your old swing speed. They figured out that when you shift forms, if you summon an albino snake companion pet, it actually resets your swing timer, slightly speeding up your swing for an increase of, I don't know, I think it was like 50 DPS. It's maybe not even that. It's so tiny, but people do it, and you could weak aura it, so you don't even have to like think about it. It just does it automatically.
So if that works, does find fish work too?
I think they patched
They
it.
patched
So find
fish, I think.
Yeah, find fish used to do that. They patched it.
Okay.
Because yeah, so I don't know. I think there's a downside to find fish. Maybe you need to have fishing, and a lot of people don't bother. I don't know. But yeah, most people just do the albino snake because you can buy it in Dalaran for like a couple bucks and call it a day. Albino snake specifically, you can look up the weak order, but yeah, that's gone now. It's all that stuff is just
Technically, it still works, but there's no point in it.
It works.
Yeah,
because you're not shifting anymore. And like maybe if you go back to bear weaving, like if we do the mangled bear weave in the future, which people have talked about, you can still turn it on because it has absolutely no negative to having it.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens automatically. But some people don't like having the snake constantly popping up, or just having like a snake next to them. I don't know. I don't care. But yeah.
I remember reading a comment. Someone was very frustrated that a druid in their group was summoning the snake. They didn't like snakes. They were like, "You got to stop summoning the snake. I have a snake phobia." And they were going to kick this guy out of the group if he kept doing his stupid snake weaving.
Oh my god!
So
wow,
that's
do
crazy.
phobias translate to in game? Like I'm arachnophobic. Like actually, but like in game, it doesn't affect me. In real life, it's like stupid and debilitating, and I understand that it's an irrational fear, but for some reason I can't get over it. It's like obnoxiously bad. But in
are you
games,
saying that's why your parses are so low on makes now?
You know what? It's hard to focus on banishing the stun if you're worried about being in a spider's bunghole the whole time, right?
True.
Well, so I have really bad arachnophobia too, but it's not because of what they look like. Like size doesn't matter. It's because of the way they move.
Yes,
That's what actually scares me.
Fuck that. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you understand.
Yes, I definitely do.
Now I'm getting goosebumps.
I know.
All right,
I'm like checking around my.
Yeah. So snake weaving. So essentially, it just like whenever you shifted from bear to cat again, you had a really slow timer. What, like 3.8, whatever your attack was.
Yeah,
right?
It was like 2 point something, but yeah.
Yeah,
but if your weapon
haste,
speed, yeah, much slower.
So now that's what that got rid of, but you don't even really need to do that anymore because now with the changes, you're not going into feral, or you're not going into bear. Sorry, at least
so
currently,
most people aren't, and you can 99 parse 100% without going into it, and most people are gonna not go to it. There's a theory that it's still viable. So a lot of people are talking. Every minute you have to reapply Mangle. If your job is to reapply Mangle, it does make sense if you can find the right window to shift into Bear to just do the Mangle and then go back, because you're still getting energy. Luckily, you have 3 to 5 points. So you're still going to get up to 60 energy while you're in Bear. That is a very specific, small scenario that if you don't do, you'll be fine. You're talking like, I don't know what the DPS is. That's the problem. We don't know what the loss is. But yeah, if you don't do that, you'll still be top parse. You can still get your hundreds and stuff like that. But for the min maxers, just like snake weaving, everyone's looking for those tiny, ways that you can, improve your class. And it looks like that might be one of those things where they find holes like that.
Well, was it? So everybody that I ever talked to said they did not like bear weaving. Is it a fun rotation? Like,
okay, that depends on you. So I'll tell you the story of bear weaving. When I first got into it, because we discovered bear weaving super early on, like beta was when bear weaving came out. It was I can't remember, was it Bear to Go who theory crafted it? I can't remember. But someone didn't even test it. It was before the beta was out. They theory crafted, hey, here's something you could do, and a bunch of us started trying it. And originally it was Mangle Maul. And then people were like, no, I think you can fit lacerates. And then here we are lacerating. And it was really fun because it was this cool idea. And everyone was like, yeah, bear weaving. The reality is some people hated it. Actually, the majority of people actually hated it. But if you want to parse, which you do it. Yeah. Then gift weaving came along not too far after that. In fact, I think gift weaving actually had been around.
Gift weaving was the worst. It was around in the beta because I remember testing it as during the beta, and I remember just being like, this is so dumb. I have such strong feelings for gift weaving. I'm go into it, but yeah, I have such strong feelings for gift weaving.
Before we go to gift weaving, can I back up a little bit? Yeah. I was technical difficulties when you were talking about bear weaving initially, so forgive me for this.
Sure.
Generally, the idea with bear weaving was that like you dump all your energy in cat form, then you'd go to bear form, and your energy would regen while you're in bear form. And you'd just be spending your rage resource in bear form while you're letting that regen, and then you go back into cat form. So it's like on a time that like a rogue might be pooling their energy, what you're doing instead of just sitting there doing nothing is going to bear form and spending these other resources that you have available to you in bear form.
100%
exactly
what bear weaving is. And then gift weaving is kind of the same thing. When your energy gets low, you shift into caster form, cast Gift of the Wild, you get a free Omen of Clarity pack, shift back into cat form, and then you because you were out of form, you were regenerating energy. You have that energy plus the Omen of Clarity, clear casting, so it gives you almost 2 in a row that you can now cast, and that's gift weaving. It's a much easier rotation. However, it's if you don't have a Fury Warrior, it's a DPS loss because when you're shifted out of cat or bear form, you also are removing Leader of the Pack, which is giving 5%
for everyone
to your melee. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
People were doing that in GDKPs and like groups and like guilds and defending themselves, and that's why I have like this like vendetta against it. It's like why they're like, so I can have a free cast, but you just dropped your buff that you were the reason why you were brought at the time, right? Was literally for that, and you dropped that buff to go completely out of form to cast Gift of the Wild, which, if you don't know the class, is just your buff on everyone in the raid, which will basically always give you that clear casting, and then you would be able to go back into cat form and you would be able to have a free cast of your next ability. It would be free. It wouldn't cost anything. That's what you would get from clear casting. But during that
you're talking like a pretty marginal gain from this gift weave, I'm guessing, compared to everyone in the raid losing the crit for 1.5 seconds or so.
They initially
and that doesn't quite balance out.
They initially did the math, and I think you had to. Oh man, I haven't looked at this math in a long time, but I think if you were going to gift weave, you had to still maintain leader of the pack above 95%, and it was almost impossible if you were completely gift weave leaning, because the only way to do it correctly is to have a Fury Warrior or a second Feral that was maintaining the buff for you. But then, like Sarthe said, that's kind of why we're brought, is for that buff. So you're kind of trolling, but yeah, that's the reality is those. And gift weaving came from bear weaving. Like bear weaving was a thing. It was a generation of, 500 TPS increase or whatever. And people were like, I don't want to do this. What else can we do? And then gift weaving. There's also, I'm skipping out, but like there was Resto Weaving or Resto Cat, which utilized an ability that allowed you an instant nature spell, so you'd heal, and the heal had a high chance of proccing Omen of Clarity. There was also Wrath Weaving. Man, there's so much stupid stuff, and it's all essentially, it's still there, but it's gone.
And these are all kind of similarly going into the same idea of like, you dumped all your resources while in cat form. Now you're going to do something else in a different form while you let those resources regenerate, or like getting an Omen of Clarity proc is kind of like getting more resources because it gives you a free cast that you can then spend on like an energy ability in cat form. And that they're all kind of working towards that same goal. Is that right?
Yeah. So you either you bear weave and you are doing damage while you're regenning your energy, or you're doing something to proc Omen of Clarity to then get back to cat and then just keep going. Bear weaving was the more efficient one because you were still doing damage, whereas when you're in caster form, you're just standing there, maybe meleeing with your weapon once. So at the end of the day, bear weaving was the overall winner, but it was also the least liked of the majority of players. And yeah,
why do you think that?
Because so here's the problem with bear weaving in a nutshell. It's not only hard, it's punishing if you screw up. It's not like, oh, well, like if you let the last rate drop off, you might as well just give up you're done. Your parse is over. And that's so easy to happen. Like on the bosses that like Vessix, let's say Vessix turns around and you do a last rate and get blocked and your last rate's at like 1 second. Your GCD is not fast enough. You can't even reapply it. And there it goes. It's stuff like that. It's so minute and so quickly punishing that people didn't like that, because then like it's like losing your world buffs. Like you're just like, well, then who cares? Like, what am I might as well just go cat and just chill out.
I don't know if I would go there though.
But it's that mentality where you're just like, well, there goes that.
For like a second. For like one fight maybe.
Yeah, because then the next fight you're back in. Yeah, whereas world buffs, you're like, well, let's just quit. Let's just go home, guys. Yeah.
Well, and your rotation is all just in cat is one of the more difficult ones. So
yeah, and
that
then
made it even harder.
Top of that, yeah, it's the skill ceiling was very high. I think I don't think anyone would argue bear weaving skill was the highest in the game.
Yes,
I think cat by itself was probably maybe 1 or 2 with shaman, because I think enhanced shaman's pretty tricky too, but. And then rogue, obviously. I don't want to insult the rogues with their 2 buttons, but
combat rogues, tough.
Damn.
Mutilates.
I take pride in the fact that I sit here and play the game one-handed and top the meter. Like I love the assassination spec. It's very simple, and then I get to
like my
dude. I was thinking I get like a second camera and put it on my feet and have foot pedals, one for mutilate, one for envenom, and then that'd be content. I mean, really.
I actually
That could be so
have.
fun.
Yeah, I do use two foot pedals
Yeah,
because
same.
like
For push
Yeah,
talk
'cause
or
I'm
for
not-
gaming?
it depends on the character. Like for the rogue and the warrior, one of them is kick.
That's
So I'm
sick.
actually kicking them. Yeah. And I mean, you do nothing with your legs. So like, why not have some extra buttons?
Yeah. In fact, Crix was the one I was watching a stream, and he said the same thing. I think he said he wanted a foot pedal, or he already had a foot pedal, and he had like a constant like bass beat on his foot, so that he'd be ready to kick in PvP. And I think it was Crix that was talking about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a good idea. I use mine for trinkets though, for trinket procs and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
the
I like to use it for stuff that's not on the GCD too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could do
Yeah, so you just smash it.
a dance.
Yep.
Now I kind of want to do like a Dance Dance Revolution set. Like, you know how like people have done like full Elden Ring? It's like that, but we're playing Assassination Rogue top of the meters. Let's go.
Yep. Oh, and on my
Oh, yeah.
rogue, I
Good point,
use
James.
the other one for tricks on DPS because that's the one that I have.
Oh, that's a
where
good one.
It cancels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, there's way too many keybinds for Tricks of the Trading.
I have 3.
Takes
Yeah.
up like 3, sometimes 4 buttons. It's like when I do Yogg-Saron, I first I gotta be able to like trick 2 different warlocks in phase 3. Then I gotta trick someone in the brain room.
Yep.
Then I have to have a tricks for the tank also to like help corral the ads in phase 1 and phase 3. It takes up way too many buttons.
He gets it,
Oh,
guys,
man.
and that's why Simon is the
Life
rogue
is
god.
tough as a rogue. I just want to say, James pointed out one of the other big things people didn't like about bear weaving was the threat issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned earlier, that is a concern. I mean, in raid environments, it's less common because, like you just said, you guys are spamming tricks. You know, you've got your misdirects. But like, I wouldn't even bear weave in a 5-man because you're pugging for the most part, and you're just gonna pull. You're just gonna, every time.
Yeah.
So that is like a factor. And gift,
Yeah.
the gift weave only really works in maybe 10 and 25.
Yeah, because you need as many
a number of
targets.
people. Yeah.
I've had
So-
that happen a couple times where like the feral just randomly pulls threat on Algalon and dies, and it's like, oh, why'd you die? Oh, well, I was stacking Lacerate for my 50 DPS increase. Very
Yeah.
necessary. Now I'm dead, 60 seconds into the fight.
So yeah, so I think we all can agree that part of the change is good, right? The fact that they don't have to keep generating a really
Threat.
high threat.
Yeah.
Like it's a bad thing for
It's
everybody.
still a
right?
problem, and ferals. The only other thing ferals have ever been calling for is
A
fixing
minor
power.
glyph.
No, well, I mean that would be a fix, but like if you guys don't know, you guys had what's the
Faint.
rogue version of
Faint,
Faint.
and
Called
it,
Faint.
and
It reduces
it's a
a
DPS
fixed
increase.
amount of.
We have
Yeah,
it's a set. Ours is too. Ours is a flat like 2,000, I think. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but
it's an insignificant amount of.
if it
threat,
was a
really.
percentage based
Really
thing,
is.
I would put it on my keybinds. But because it's a flat amount, I don't. It's not going to save the day. I mean, it needs to be self. It does-
You might want to
be-
look into your cower mechanics because rogues have a really weird thing with their feint ability. It counts as a weapon hit insofar as it can trigger your berserking enchant on your main hand and your poisons on your main hand. Anything that procs directly from the weapon.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm
don't-
sure you've theory crafted plenty of stuff
I think
about Druid.
you you just don't want to waste the GCD. That's the downside. Of
Oh,
it.
yeah, okay. Yeah, rogues are a little different. They have a lot of free
Yeah, you have-
GCDs.
You get
And then
a
they can make
DPS
their feint.
increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They make their feint cost 0 energy with the glyph, and then it's just like you got free GCDs, you hit feint, and you get a little bit of damage boost. And it's also got this sweet defensive. I don't know if the Druid ability
No, we don't
Cower
have
has
that.
a similar. Yeah, okay.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I wish we did. Like, it doesn't it's like lowers your damage taken by like a certain percentage or something.
Reduce damage taken from AoE effects by 50%. So,
Yeah,
like,
it's
you just
huge.
sit in lightning charges on Thorim, you sit in Overload, you really don't care about the explosions on the ads in Yogg-Saron Phase 1. There's all kinds of AoEs that you can just negate. And, I mean, it's an all-star on Mimiron. Like, you just look at rogues who are actually using Feint on Mimiron, look at their damage taken compared to any of the other melee DPS. It's like, it's so obvious how valuable that is to a raid.
Well, ferals have built-in AoE reduction. Plus, we do have bark skin, which is off the GCD.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have ways to reduce damage. I know you got to press the buttons, though. You know, I mean, at least got to press the bark skin. We don't have to press the reduce AoE.
Right.
It's in our talents. But yeah.
I feel like most classes tend to be GCD locked. Like that's a big deal for a lot of classes. So it always comes with a little bit of a surprise to me because as a rogue, it's like, yeah, you're just sitting there doing nothing, like plenty of the time.
Yeah,
like you got GCDs to spare.
The pooling of energy.
Well, combat's a little different though. Like you have a lot of time on mutilate, but combat, you're kind of hitting a lot of buttons a lot of time.
Yeah, hitting a lot of buttons. You still have a little bit of free time. Definitely less free
have
time than mutilate. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you said, like the GCD thing. It's funny because Feral Fairy Fire, everyone's like it's free, but the reality is it's not free. It costs 1 GCD, and that 1 GCD for a feral is like a lot because you always want to be pressing buttons, and when you press that and you can't do anything for that GCD, you have to factor that in, which it's a minor factor, but like it is a cost that you have to pay to press that button. If it was off the GCD, it would be
screw that.
broken.
Yeah, wait.
You would bind it. You would bind it to everything. Imagine getting a spell that you can bind to every single spell, and it just makes you better and rep paladins. So. Yeah. But yeah, because it's got the GCD.
Because of that, though, like, isn't it kind of fine? Because no matter what you were, once you were out of energy, you didn't do anything with that GCD other than going into bear form or leaving shifting form, right?
Yeah, it's better, and it's better than bear weaving because bear weaving does the same thing. It triggered GCD. So, yeah.
Yeah.
If that's what you're saying.
So that is actually pretty nice then, because now when you cap out, your next GCD would have been to shifting into bear feral or bear form and doing other things. So it's not like really losing you out. So I'm sure you guys have like figured out the rotation the feral Discord is all about simming or like theory crafting like crazy. One thing I was curious about and about how you feel about this. So a lot of people were upset about this change because it reduced the skill gap between the best ferals and the worst ferals, which we absolutely could see quite significantly in your raids. Whenever you had a feral DPS in your raid, 98% of the time they weren't really doing very much damage, and so it reduces that skill gap. But have you seen the sentiment kind of change mostly now that people have seen that, like, they just, like, even though you're doing less, it feels smoother and you get a large DPS increase?
So you're 100% right. Well, so people might disagree with you. I think the ability to get higher DPS more consistently has definitely become lower hanging fruit for like your average feral. However, a lot of people in the feral community think that the absolute top is still going to have a high ceiling because you've got to time your feral fairy fires correctly. You know people are still going to be doing the bear weave mangle thing probably, and those things a lot of like your average feral is just not going to do because it's not necessary to get that 99 anymore. But to get that 100, you might see people pushing that level that much harder. So everyone's going to be able to get a higher cap for themselves, but to get way up there, it might still be a pretty high ceiling, which is cool. Okay. It's not bear weaving, but it's still there.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the same thing they said with the DK unholy haste change for snapshotting?
DK became more skill reliant, I think. It was less RNG. Oh, really? Yeah, as an unholy, it's more about how you play and less RNG now.
Oh, that's good then.
Which is, honestly, it's such an interesting world about Death Knights. The changes with Death Knights was, in a parse world, Death Knight was like brain dead. It was like, did you get your procs? Sick. All right, press your button, let Gary do everything for you. But in a speedrun world, Death Knights was the most complex class in phase 1. It was above basically everything, maybe feral, but it was the most complex class because of everything you were managing throughout the raid. And therefore, in like the top guilds, you would notice the difference between like the DK cores, and a lot of them would have like meetings after every raid and go over every single second of the raid and break it all down, which was wild because you wouldn't have to do that for any other class, but you had to because everything depended on your Gary, and so it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Now you actually have static abilities that you have to do your rotation correctly to actually do good DPS.
That's cool.
I just remember that. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say. I just remember that first video you put out on
Me dancing.
And no, you were in a web topping the DPS because Gary was just going crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool and all, Sarthe. But I'm gonna equip my Storm Shroud and press Fan of Knives.
That's
in phase 1.
That actually, rogues had the juiciest. Like, I really liked how rogues then, especially as a difference towards now, had this like also this skill cap of like which weapon set you're using, because there's multiple weapon sets you could use, and when you were going to equip which gear set with those weapon sets was important, especially like you kind of knew which pulls you were doing all of that for, which is a similar situation for a raid. And now, I mean, I saw a clip where like now it's just general Vessex room and maybe Freya room, but there was a clip that you posted, Simon. This week
I'm gonna break 100K.
Yeah,
I'm so close.
It was like 87K DPS or something. I was like, oh my god, dude.
And I mean, is like you might say like, oh, you know, it's just a 16 mob pull. Like, of course the AOE is gonna be insane, but what's insane about it is the next highest AOE, a Demo Warlock, pushing all of their buttons, is less than half of that. It's like the DPS meter is like Rogue is way up here, and then Warlock is here, and then everyone else is down there. It's so skewed because the Rogue AoE just like scales exponentially with the number of targets you're facing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was big in Nax because you had way more big, high quantity pulls. But now it's just Vezex, and like I think I could do it on a double trash pull. I could break 100K, but really the cheat code is just going to be to get one of my raid groups to do a triple pull of the Vezex trash. Then it's 8 more mobs, then like 100K DPS is a foregone conclusion.
You hit the 100K, the entire raid group wipes anyways, though, because like they couldn't deal with the
doesn't matter. Who cares? I hit my 100K. I got my thumbnail.
Yeah, that's so
right.
I love
green cap
the min maxing that goes into all of our classes, especially like there's so much more that goes into it than most people I think realize, because there's things that we have to think about for everything. And I think Feral Druid is one that has always been optimized so much, but like it's easy for Rogue because it seems so obvious because rogues have Simon who's like making these videos about like, if you do this on this pull, like, or on this size of a pull, you will do exponentially more damage. But a lot of the classes don't really have that as much. And I think Griftin, you're doing a lot of good work with that on Feral now, especially as a lot of people are going to re-roll Feral. What do you think are some of the first or like main takeaways that someone should think about when going Feral? Like, what are some of the things they really should focus on? Because let's be real, we'll talk about that actually next, but like Feral's kind of cracked right now.
Yeah. Well, okay. So keep in mind, okay, let's say you had to learn how to juggle, but you only had to learn how to juggle with one hand, and then they give you 2 hands. Juggling's feeling really easy right now. That's more what happened to Ferals. Is they used to be hard enough that it was such a complicated thing that you really had to, I mean, every time, like when a new Feral hits 80, I always say first thing you should do is head to a training dummy and practice. And now all of a sudden you've made their rotation easier. And yeah, like that is one of the biggest factors is you've taken a class that was very hard, made it slightly easier, and all those Ferals that were, pretty good, not great, are now great. And that is a larger factor than, I'm not saying this isn't an amazing boost, but yeah, as far as like new Ferals, it's the same thing. Get the rotation down. Because like that's the other thing you really shouldn't say as a Feral is we don't have a rotation as much as we have a priority list.
Good old
and
enhanced
that's something
shaman.
like you have, yeah, exactly. You have to get the mentality that There isn't like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or like it's not like a set rotation. It's
not
all right.
ret.
You need to keep Mangle up. You need to get Rake up. You need to keep your Savage Roar up. You want Savage Roar 100%, close to 100 as possible.
Mhm.
You want Rip above 90. You want Rake above 80%. And these are like minimum goals. People that parse well, they get them into the mid 80s. That's what they see. You got to get Shred on cooldown. Always use Feral Fairy Fire for shreds. Know when you're berserks. Don't use Ferocious Bite when you're mid energy because you never want to get that extra. Like all these little things are what makes it hard because like they all add up. Like once you learn this, then you learn this, and I think that's what's cool about it because that part hasn't changed. Now it's just no bear weaving. Yeah.
So they reduced the complexity a little bit, but there's still a lot of complexity left behind. Because in Blizzard's post about it, they kind of stated their goal was to reduce the complexity, make it more approachable, and then they also said 5 to 10 DPS% increase. And it's sounding like they got the complexity thing, but maybe they overshot on the DPS. Do you think?
Well, so I was looking into this today, right?
Yep.
Because so our really good Feral Druid, he parses 99s, was generally like 12-ish on boss damage throughout the raid at the end of the raid. And at the end of this week's raid, he was number 1. And I was like, oh my God. But then I went and tried to look at Warcraft logs, and I think we're going to have to wait till we have a full week because I could look at 1 day, I could look at 1 week, or I could look at 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So 1 day just tells me who raided last night, right? And the best people, I mean, a lot of the really good people raid Tuesday nights, Tuesday day, and like we really just need the whole week to be able to really know because there's still currently like if you look at just 1 day, they're sitting at like number 6, right?
And that feels like a good place. If I'm allowed to say, I don't think Feral's.
If that's where it is.
Yeah. I will say, and I said this earlier, if you compare the Feral now to the Warmane Feral, it's better.
It's literally better. It's literally better.
Yeah.
Which is
a concern for me because my biggest fear is they will either undo this or if they man, here's the concern. Everyone's like, oh, they need to undo this, roll this back. Or some people said even move it to 50% chance to proc. And what that does, the reason I don't think they can do that is because if they bring it down to 50%, what you're really saying is let's bring bear weaving back. Because bear weaving is 100% DPS or guaranteed DPS. Feral Fairy Fire, what you'll do is you'll go bear weave and you'll probably Fairy Fire in bear. And if you get the proc, like you'll do your rotation in bear, you'll do the Fairy Fire. If you get the proc, then you switch to cat. And that's just even more complicated than it already is. And I mean, the people that are sweaty are going to love it, and the people that are finally happy they can play their class are going to hate it.
Yeah, I have some. Okay, I just want to show you guys really quickly some of these numbers that people have put together, and this isn't a perfect simulation for phase 5, right? So, like, first of all, yesterday or today on Algalon,
phase 5 or phase 4?
Sorry, phase 4. Yeah. No, that's actually okay. Wait for me to get into that. Okay, perfect. So first,
here we go, boys. Delete your paladins, delete your rogues, delete your warriors. We're all druids now.
First of all, right now on Algalon, Feral on that single target fight is like
everybody's going Feral now.
And I would say a thing about that is a lot of Ferals, well, the rotation is not perfected, and 2, a lot of Ferals probably don't have fucking like every single item because it wasn't really the prio to give Ferals all of the items above everything. So there's like, it's very new. So like Feral already on single target being on average 3rd. Obviously we see Warlocks on the top, but that there's some cheesy ass things that can happen obviously for Warlocks to get super high, but they're obviously amazing. But Feral single target right now seeing 3rd. But the questionable thing is Feral's in full ICC gear, and this isn't even a perfect sim. I've heard that people have higher. Do you have a better one?
Can we talk about Algalon for just 1 second? I want to point something out. Algalon is a melee friendly fight.
Yeah, so it was already friendly.
Seeing
for them.
Ferals up there isn't a giant. We're not beating the Unholy DK. We're not beating the Assassination Rogue. I think that if you look at that, that's where a melee should be, like up at the top, not at the very top, but like up in the mid top. So when I see that, it does not hurt my heart at all because all the melee are up there. If you show me Hodir and we're number one, okay, well,
that's impossible. Come on.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you show me a caster friendly fight and melee's on top, you'd be upset. If you show me a melee friendly fight and melee's on top, you should just be like, okay, that looks right. And I think that's what we just saw with the.
I think that's fair. Algalon is very, very melee friendly, although it's also kind of like Algalon's a weird one because there's a lot of like extra shit you can do, right? To like cheese a little bit of more damage.
Yeah.
But Warcraft Vlogs has done their best to adjust this, but that's fair. That's true. But in the Sims though, apparently, and I don't have the exact numbers for this now, but apparently the new Sims for Feral Single Target Full Bis this phase is like having them basically the same as the best DPS, right? But
in phase 2?
Yeah. But the thing is, they scale, like this new change scales really well. And that's
it does.
Where I think, like you were saying, if Blizzard goes in and is like, oh shit, we buffed it too much. Because look at this simulation that was sent to me by a Fury Warrior in my guild who tried to eke out more DPS. And guess what? He has less DPS and he has trinkets from Ruby Sanctum, the last phase. He tried to just get away with that. He tried to get away with using items that aren't even out in ICC. And he's obviously a full Shadowmourne bissed out Fury Warrior. Same situation. These are 3-minute fight situations, 3 minutes plus or minus 5 seconds. And then feral DPS from someone who didn't even actually put it all together perfectly. And I know there's ones that are higher, like 1740, 1750, right? So feral DPS right now, currently from simulations, which aren't even perfected, and the rotation could be perfected to increase the DPS, right? Are showing as the number 1 DPS in ICC. Now the jump was huge. Ruggs was right. Everybody eat your own shoe, or whatever the term is. Feral DPS is Giga Chad. So Feral could be even better than this, and the only one that would compete, I guess, in single target and perfect situation would be Fire Mage. And if they fixed Fire Mage, they're like fucking off to the moon, right?
I still don't trust the sim yet on at least Armor Pen. Like I just don't trust it on Armor Pen yet.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I want to trust the Sims. It sucks trying to base anything on a Sim 2 phases away.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to. Someone pointed this out, and I think this is really interesting. And I'm not against buffing any class. But I mean, there's like a line. But someone pointed out that the change that was made, the 2-handed weapon for warriors, I forgot what it's called.
Titan's Grip.
Titan's Grip. They added that 10% decrease in 3.3, but prior to that, they didn't have that decrease. So warriors, if you played a beginning Wrath, there was phases and patches and so they were much more powerful coming into ICC. But Shadowmourne made them so powerful that they actually got nerfed with that 10% debuff. So the thing that sucks is they've been stuck with that 10% debuff the whole game. Is that fair? I don't know, but that is a good argument for warriors. Like, hey, give us that 10% back until ICC hits. But what is the
cooldown for Omen? Like, how often can
6 seconds, right? For your Fairy Fire, right?
So Omen can proc. Let me back up. Omen can proc off of Feral Fairy Fire 100% of the time. It has no internal cooldown, global cooldown, anything except for Feral Fairy Fire itself has a 6-second cooldown. You can also, from white damage, proc Omen of Clarity. It has no internal cooldown, so it can proc constantly, though it does have a much lower proc chance. And then you also, in the current tier set, your Rake, Rip, and Lacerates can also proc Omen of Clarity in their own separate system, but they do have an internal cooldown. I think if this is right, it's like 40. I don't know if that was still confirmed, but it does have an internal cooldown. That's the only one that has an internal cooldown, though Feral Fairy Fire technically has a 6-second cooldown because, yeah. So even with Feral Fairy Fire procking, you're still getting other procs. So like, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Right before this call, I had a call with a lot of the DK Gigabrain chads. Shout out to White Wolf and getting everybody together for that. But he apparently in a 5 target situation in ICC, the change to Feral Fairy Fire gave like 7,000 DPS or something like that. I have the numbers. I can pull it up. I'm not like,
I saw what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm not like, and I think these buffs are crazy. They're awesome. It's really cool to see the class being like adjusted in a way that really helps the class itself, because the class was absolutely struggling, right? The class was struggling. I think it brings up the question now, first of all, whenever we talk about any changes that have happened, you literally always get people that are like, but what about me? But what about me?
Yeah,
right? Like,
what about me?
That's the big problem.
And so that's like, so this is what it was. This was like this was like 4 minutes, 5 targets or something. And this is the difference between the new buff and not in ICC is like, trash damage. And I didn't even think about this, but like in reality, we haven't ran our speed run yet this week, but we've had some ferals in some of our alt runs, but Progress has too, and they cut off 5 minutes this week. So like,
you think because of the ferals? Because that's a good selling point.
No. That is not. No. They just had a clean run. That's not at all the factor. I'm just curious to see how it stacks up on overall and how it adjusts that. And I'm curious what your predictions are for that, the change on like throughout a raid. Cause I think myself and a lot of guilds really focus on that, like throughout the entire raid.
Let me ask you guys this change. Do you bring 2 ferals now?
I think we are in one raid, and we're looking at the changes of like the potential of ferals, right? Like, and I can't speak for it fully, but I think we are at least in one of our raids this week. We have 2 ferals in one of our raids this week, but my guild isn't stacking yet. So our pace this last week was like the exact same pace that the new world record is, and then we wiped on Yogg-Saron, pretty Chad. And so, but we haven't brought all of our characters together yet. So this week we are, and next week I think we might start using more serious characters, because we had a lot of people that were like 200, 222 eye level or gear score or whatever.
I mean, looking at these buffs. Go ahead.
You go.
Okay,
sure.
I will go.
You go.
Looking at the like initial reports, with the ferals being quite strong. Like if they're on par with the highest like individual output classes previously, they don't even have to be better. It becomes pretty easy to stack them in raids because they're going to bring more utility than a rogue does.
We had the same thing to say.
With their combat res, with their innervate.
Exactly.
It's like you'll have, one or two rogues.
I, as the feral, disagree.
You think so? I'm curious.
Let's talk speed running. Or let's talk a regular class. Like we run 3 druids. We run a healer that usually is boomkin because healing, you're always swapping. We have a consistent boomkin, and then we have the feral. Ferals last to battle res. We're not having mana problems anymore, or at least early on. And even then, you already have 2. You're up to 3 innervates. Is a 4th innervate going to be a game changer? Is a 4th B-res going to be a game changer? Whereas if you bring rogues, threat is still an issue, not just for ferals, for a lot of classes on openers, on mob pulls. So a rogue always has that value that if you bring a 3rd one, there's still value add. Whereas a second feral is hard to justify the utility at that point.
I think the worse the guild is, or the worse the raid team is, the more beneficial it is
a good argument,
to stack them, because B-res bails bad play out big time,
I think it might not even be about like high skill or low skill group, but like you take a high skill group and you try to execute a risky strategy or something difficult. Like you might not choose to do that risky strategy if you've got 2 battle reses in your raid. But if you've got 4 and like you can recover if something goes wrong, it's a different story. I think
I definitely think ferals have a
maybe
place.
more so the battle res like allows you to push harder in like really aggressive strategies, even more so than the innervate perhaps.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's the whole thing where the red pally buff scares the crap out of me too, because
Really,
they
yeah.
have so much utility. And if now all of a sudden, oh, well, am I going to lose my raid spot? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it is scary for other people. This is why
You want to know
these changes make things really scary. And for a casual, unlike us, like we could just re-roll, right? But a casual like can't. They don't have
Yeah.
time to work up another character and go to a bunch of DKPs and work up, quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing.
One
I will say.
oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just
No,
gonna say
that's
one interesting thing about the Ret Paladin buff. I'm curious about how it's like. I've always been someone who's optimistic about Ret Paladins in ICC in particular because of their spin to win. If you don't know, they're 2-piece. I think it's 2 pieces. The tier 10 gives them a chance to get a free Divine Storm, and it just can keep happening where they're just getting free Divine Storms, especially with like Shadowmourne. It hits really hard. It scales off weapon damage, and now they also do more damage with all of their Divine Storms because of the change. So like I think that's really strong. But right now, interestingly enough, the world record, which is like I was saying, is Progress is now has the fastest run by a little bit. They are even running a BM Hunter instead of bringing a Ret Paladin. So the utility of a Retribution Paladin has been outweighed because of their current DPS levels compared to a BM Hunter for overall damage. A BM Hunter is out DPSing them for overall right now in some speedruns.
I think for a speed run, that's a good argument, but I think the antithesis of that is for a casual, Ret Paladin brings DSAC, and Algalon just got harder, and people are like, no, we need that DSAC. I don't care what his DPS is. As long as he can press his DSAC, he's coming. And I would love to be a class that someone would, like the raid leader would say that. Like, I don't care if you're garbage, you're coming. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm okay with being like that, that class. And rogues aren't that class, ferals aren't that class, but paladins, I mean, they're not that class, but they are. The paladin is that class where you're like, yeah, we'll bring a fourth paladin, regardless of what their class is, because Algalon is hitting so hard right now that we need to cycle the DSACs for this in order to down it. For speed runs, you could probably you're fine.
I think also a good point, like you're saying, is in reality, the speedrunning scene, like the top guilds in the world are all like, we're testing everything and we're running every situation and trying to weigh everything. And it has this weird trickle down effect where everyone in all of their guilds that are running maybe like a 2, a 3, 4 hour Ulduar, are making the same decisions and completely justifying it as if like that's the be all end all, when it's not at all. If you're not like giga optimizing, there's no reason to, right? And like we're even already like we're thinking like the ferals could be insanely strong, right? So like we're like, you always want to think ahead and be like, well, what if this is as good as it's looking like on the Sims? So just be prepared for that, right? And we want to think about every situation. But if anyone's like listening or watching right now, is your guild is so different, and making your decisions on pure like the most optimized thing is so different than like choosing the player who's just better. Just choose the player who's better and helps your raid more. It's like almost every raid should do that, because that person does more damage than your unholy DK with full bis gear that's parsing like fucking 40s, that's doing like 6k DPS on single target, when if he was a perfect player, he would be doing 12k, 13k, right? Like it's so different. And it's so important to have the player over the class for most people. Yeah, and to understand where your raid is.
I feel like that's a really, really common thing that people do. Like, even in like boss parsing, they'll like look at the top rogue on X or Y boss, and they'll see like he uses a trinket that's not on the bis list, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is the best rogue in the world. Clearly, Mjolnir Runestone's better than Dark Matter for assassination." and they're like they're missing the context of like this is a like one of the fastest kills in the world. He has a lot of other good gear. Maybe this is just the best thing he has, but it's like they'll look at these highly optimized, like highest performance things and sometimes draw the wrong conclusions from them. And it's like it's an easy mistake to make, but it's to actually learn from those high performance situations, it takes a little bit of experience to know like what's relevant that actually applies to your situation that may be very different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I think is really nice from all of these changes is that it is cool that your average feral that you were having beforehand that was doing doo-doo DPS is now doing a lot more DPS, right? Like it was easier for them to do a lot more DPS. And second of all, there's the copium from warriors, and I don't want to say that as much, but like it is funny because there's always that like warriors like wanting to be well, why don't we get buffed? Why can't we get buffed if you're buffing them? But on average, right, the same thing happens. A really good warrior right now, like you watch Alondo's kills, watch one of the warriors in one of the top raids. They're actually pumping, especially on cleave, obviously.
I don't think anybody feels bad for warriors because they always start out a little weak, and then by the end of an expansion, they're the number one DPS, and they're they got their Thunder Fury in one hand and their Glaives in the other, and they're like, oh, I want more DPS. You're like, get out of here, man, get out of here. Not that there's anything wrong with warriors, and they're a great class, but calm down.
Okay.
Calm down.
Well, they do. I mean,
Shadowmourne. You're right. You don't have Shadowmourne
that helps
yet.
them gets nerfed instantly. Like the little thing with fiery weapon, they're like, nope, can't have that.
That was wild.
That's
how
fair.
fast
That's
that
fair.
was. That was gonna scale.
I was shocked by that because
in such a ridiculous way. That was gonna scale in a ridiculous way, and
is that why?
I think the main thing is probably because it also. Well, in my opinion, this is like total speculation, but like you also had an advantage if you had a item from a world boss that you can't kill anymore, right? Like, wasn't that like if you had a necklace that gave you like +2 fire damage or something? Like if you just happen to have kept that, you just got 3% damage.
Yeah, so that was a Blaze Fury medallion from Lord Kazakh, which was even removed in TBC. You had to have gotten that in Classic. And it just made your every like attack you did had an extra 2 fire damage ticked on, and the whole thing with the fiery weapon was like all these fire damage instances could crit and they would trigger your deep wounds.
Yeah.
So then if you have an extra chance to crit on every attack, that's huge.
That seems cool. I like that idea.
People would have literally leveled Season of Mastery characters, gotten the necklace, and transferred 100% for ICC. Like, unironically, no joke, not just parsers, but top guilds would have had to do it, and I would have been really annoyed.
Hated it. Yeah.
And you would have done it.
Yeah, you're gosh darn right. That was my hardcore challenge number 2, and then I'll transfer my character.
It is interesting when they kind of pick and choose what. Like, I know a lot of people are mad about the mage munching stuff, and they're like, fix this, and I don't even know if they plan to fix it or if they're just like, we don't know how. But like, why not fix that? Like, I don't know if anybody's like mad that they, but they haven't fixed that. Whereas they fixed that, like they fixed the fiery weapon thing. I don't know how they choose when to balance, and I wish.
Not sure
I think it's one of the things Blizzard needs to work on, especially with the classic community, is like they have the worst communication. Like. This fix came hey, it'll be up in the next 24 hours. 2 minutes later, it's live, and you're like, what just happened?
To be fair, though, I've always been like man, I feel like I'm such a shill, but when I say this, but like think about until Wrath of the Lich King, we didn't get one word from them once about any changes ever. It literally was zero communication. So at least we do get some compared to what was quite literally nothing for years. There was nothing. It was like, oh, that change just went through. There's no fucking blue post. They weren't like, this is why our reasonings are for it. Now we have like in the post, Agrand literally goes into the reasons for how it all works and like why they thought about it all. But they're open. They're like looking at the data, right? Like they'll literally say, we're looking at the data, but this is the reason for it, and this is what we're expecting the changes to be, right?
But
so
let me just inject this though. What are the phases? We are halfway through this expansion. We haven't even given a phase post yet.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they give us Ruby Sanctum with the next phase, because
right. You mentioned that in a video, and I was like, we don't even know.
What are you gonna do after ICC? Nothing. No one is playing that phase after ICC if it's just another one boss raid added. No shot.
Yeah, it's
no
so
shot,
dumb,
dude.
It's so dumb.
I hadn't even thought of that. I just like been assuming it's like, yeah, we have a phase. We know what the phases are. Like
someone
I never really looked
came
into
up with one, and we're all like, yeah, that looks right. Who knows? I don't know.
So it's like next phase is like Trial of the Crusader and Onyxia, right?
Yeah,
and then it's Ice Crown, maybe with Ruby Sanctum, or maybe Ruby Sanctum's another phase after that.
Exactly. Like
so that's what I mean about communication. Like, I don't feel like we have an open dialogue with the devs, or whoever's in charge. Holly, I guess.
I don't think they have, right? Like, I feel like things. It's because in my opinion, and this is like not like fact, but like I feel like it just feels like because of like Activision Blizzard, it's like Activision Blizzard King, which if you guys didn't know, that's fucking Candy Crush. That's part of the major company. They have like, they're the execs. So like when you want to do something in like the classic team, which is like the small team, it's like, okay, is anything else with all of our things clashing with that? No. So we can't announce that because we don't know about the dates releases for these other games, because we're not fully done with the development for it, or like these updates. So we can't promise something unless it's finite, right? Like it's very touchy to like be like, we can't say anything until we're exactly ready to say it and we're not changing it. Which is different than the way Blizzard was way back in the day. It was like, remember, like there was a pushback on like every release was pushed back a ton, but they would always release like a really good game with what at the time felt like a really, really good, really solid game. Now it's like, they don't want to say something that is wrong, and they're very. I think that's maybe today's economy of video games, or like just PR in general, right?
Well, and also we do have a dialogue with them. Lots of the content creators. I'm not sure if you're in that, but
no, I know Scotty J mentions that he gets to talk to the.
Well, we don't really get to talk to them. All the content creators say things, and we hope that they're reading them, but I think they are reading a lot of the feedback there, but it's not really a back and forth type of deal.
It's more like shouting into the void.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I don't know if you guys know, I made a video about 2 months ago asking for Blizzard to make Feral Fairy Fire proc Omen of Clarity.
Oh, I know.
Didn't hear anything from them. I posted in Reddit. I posted in their forums. I heard not a word from them, and this comes out. Like, this is the void. Like, is this what they were? I don't know, because I told you, Sarthe. I was like,
I know.
I want this app, and it's so frustrating because they could have said, yeah, we're working on that, or we're looking into that. Anything, just like even like 5 words. Like, bring back Ghostcrawler. That's all I'm saying.
Well, some of them like do listen to this actual podcast, so they will hear you right here.
Oh, cool. Man, I gotta be careful what I say then.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, Feral is okay. It's definitely not overgeared. I think, it's a little weaker. If we can get that cower, that'd be great.
I have so Rugs sent us a video to premiere here on and let me see if I can see if I can let me see if I can stream it onto here.
Watching it delayed would be annoying.
I know. Can you, what do you guys see?
We see your symbol.
Oh, you see my symbol? Okay.
Is it possible if he has it like unlisted on YouTube, you could send us the link?
I can give it to you guys. Yes, I have it unlisted. I give it to you guys right now. and then we'll all start it on a fat 1, 2, 3. What legends? That's beautiful.
Or I could put it through my camera and just turn my camera off for now.
Will it play the sound too?
I can make it do that. I assume maybe I can't make it do that.
That was my concern.
All right, I'm ready. Oh,
Ready.
oh my God! I just heard the 1 second of it. I'm already excited.
No. I don't. He recruited a special guest, and I've seen now who the special guest is. So if everyone pulls it up, we can.
I have a good thought at what it might be.
Okay, I have it ready. Yeah, we could do the countdown thing. That's probably the easiest way to make this work.
All right, we're doing a countdown. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Sarthe. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the podcast today.
Oh my God, the music.
Got a lot of stuff on my plate right now, and things have just been absolutely crazy. You wouldn't believe the amount of DMs that I've gotten from Theory Warriors who just want to re-roll and have a little taste of the new Feral action.
Oh my God.
You know? I guess I was just right after all.
Oh
But this is
God.
essentially what it felt like to play Feral on P server, but
He's right the whole
However,
time.
just because Feral has been buffed doesn't mean that the person behind the keyboard was buffed. Ferals still tend to attract the worst players for some reason. And trust me, you know you have one of those guys in your guild. And if you think that guy isn't you, well, guess again. Anyway, what can I say that hasn't already been said? However, my friend Wobbly had a message for us all that he wanted to share.
From kitty to lions, Pharaoh's DPS is now flying. No more Starfall, we just treading now. Going from 15 to second, but Pharaoh's on the meters. Oh, they pumping, yeah. Oh, they pumping, oh, they pumping, oh, they pumping, yeah. Pharaoh's pumping, yeah. Pharaoh's pumping, yeah. Use a shredder. Pharaoh's pumping now. Pharaoh's pumping now.
Good.
Pharaoh's pumping Pharaoh's pumping, yeah. Pharaoh's
Mr. Wallace is so good. Holy crap.
Oh,
Dude,
that
that's
was
awesome.
epic.
Oh my
That was epic. And
God.
you guys know about Mr. Wobbles, right?
Yes, massive shout out to Mr. Wobbles, the GOAT. Dude, he's so
I have reached out to him trying to get him on the podcast.
That was really cool.
oh my
Like,
God.
That needs to be made into its own song, and I will play it constantly on loop.
Pharaoh's pumping, yeah.
Griftin, did you see his like I want to join your guild video?
Yeah, I saw Asmongold watched it.
Oh my
No.
God, you have to watch it. It's
I've only
so
watched
good.
So Go was watching a couple with me, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I don't think he ever sent me the link though.
Yeah.
That's it's cool. So 3 days? That's the turnaround for music nowadays, man.
Oh my
That's,
God, no, he
that's nuts.
it's funny.
he sings
does it.
GDKPs.
Yeah, he does.
Like while he's
I
bidding
wonder
them
if
off.
anyone
Yeah,
watches
that's
the
what he was
Wando
showing me.
clip.
That's what he was showing me.
Yeah, he like while items are being bid, he's like so good. He's been doing it for a long time. I was looking into it. If anyone doesn't know Mr. Wobbles, if you're watching or listening, I just posted his link to his YouTube in the chat. He's phenomenal. And he's like he does some GDKPs where he sings off the bids, and it's fucking hilarious, like unreal. So
Sarthe,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I thought we were starting this an hour prior. I do have to go.
No worries.
though.
I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And honestly, because unfortunately, I also have plans for my girlfriend's birthday soon. We'll cut it short there. Let's Bob, say your goodbyes. Thank you so much for coming here. Where can people find you, and where can they watch and listen to your podcast as well?
You can find all of the links to every place you can get the podcast at warcraftreloaded.com. And then you can see the show live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/BlazzinBob, I forgot how to spell BLAZZINBOB. But also, I do have a little treat for tomorrow that you might want to tune into, Sarthe.
Ooh.
Tomorrow on the podcast at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, we are having Table Slam, Scotty J, and Ruggs on the show.
Oh,
It's gonna be good.
wow! The feral guys.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Well,
Will
Scotty
they-
J's
will they-
barely a feral.
Will they
Don't give him
have
credit. Don't
exclusive
give him credit.
music?
Whoa,
though?
Griftin, shots
Nope,
fired.
they won't.
No.
They won't have.
He knows. He's been a paladin too long. He can't claim the feral title
Can
anymore.
someone ask Scotty why he says Anabarak instead of Anubarak?
Anabarak.
It's
Anabarak?
the best. It's the best thing ever. And when I first saw that video where he's just so casually talking about Trial of Crusader, and then he just casually drops, and when you're moving on to Anabarak, and I was like, wait a second, what just happened? It was so phenomenal. So if that's
Does
how
that mean-
everyone in England says
When-
it, that's amazing.
When he shortens it, does he say a nub then?
Anab?
A nub? Yeah, that's interesting. That's gonna be a good show.
That'll be, at what time is that at one more time, Bob?
1 p.m. PST and 4 p.m. Eastern time.
All right, guys, make
And
sure
then you
you're
can
there.
catch it later too, but that's when it'll be live on my channel.
Amazing. Thank you one more time for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man.
Simonize, where can the people find
Yes.
you, and anything else you want to say before we head off today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the people can find me at twitch.tv/Simonize show. We're live right now with some technical difficulties, and we're going to be raiding Old War after this. Doing some stuff, whatever. And we're on YouTube at the same handle, youtube.com/c/Simonize show is my main channel. And then there's a VODs channel too. Excellent.
Simonize Show TV, right? For the VODs?
Simonize Show TV for the VODs, yes.
Yeah.
That's where like all the live streams get
Which
uploaded. If you don't,
really
if you can't
good.
catch them live on Twitch, you can catch them on the YouTube. I had a really fun one yesterday that BlazzinBob was part of too. We did all rogue Molten Core, and then we did all rogue Blackwing Lair, and we went
That'd be
in
fun.
and every time the group wiped, we'd pull in another rogue from the stream chat, and we tried to see how many rogues it would take to clear these old raids. You know,
Yeah.
we're not tanks, we're not healers. We just kill the mob before it kills us, and it was a blast.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a good time. We got through most of Molten Core with just 2.
Oh, wow. Damn.
That's crazy.
Yeah. How many was it
Yeah,
at the end? At the end of BWL?
Golmag pushed us up to 3, and we finished Molten Core with 3. Razorgore pushed us up to 4, and then we wiped again on Nefarian with 4. We were able to get Nefarian down with 5. But you know what's actually crazy? The craziest thing from that whole thing was when we killed Major Domo. There's apparently a bug with when you kill the second to last minion on Major Domo, what he's supposed to do is cast a size and damage buff on his final minion and heal it to full.
Yeah.
Right? Apparently, he also casts that on all of the raid members now. And it's a 30-minute buff that doesn't show up on your buff bar. So we
Well, I
went
think
into
it's because
Ragnaros.
Yeah, we killed them all at the same time, I think, too quickly or something.
Wait,
We-
could
we
you bring
went
that
into
out of the
Ragnaros-
raid?
We
No,
went
we
into
tried.
Ragnaros with 64% damage buff on all 3 of our rogues
my
and not
God.
really understanding what
God.
had happened.
And we
But
were
when
huge too.
When we zoned out of Molten Core, it was gone. We just walked out the instance portal. So maybe there's some way to take it out, but just walking out of the instance portal wasn't it.
Summon into another raid. This is, we
Yeah,
just
that'd be
figured.
cool.
All right. Well, we need to figure this one out.
Oh man.
All right.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. Really, really appreciate it. And I will host or raid your stream right after this. And
Oh, wow,
Griftin.
excellent. Well, yeah, thank you for having me, Sarthe. I always love to come on these talk shows you have. I love it.
Yeah, you're the fucking man, dude. Honestly, you're just everyone here. It makes me so happy because you guys are just such good people. and I'm really bad at coordinating getting people together. Usually Crix does that, and he literally called me right before this. He's out in 4 days. He's out in 4 days, and he's going to be back.
Excellent.
My man.
But I really appreciate everyone showing up. And Griftin, where can people check you out and learn all about the Feral Chads?
Yeah, so check me out, youtube.com, just at Griftin or Griftin Wow. I just want to do a big shout out to all the Ferals that didn't give up on Feral, didn't reroll Warlocks and Mages like I was considering doing, because, man, finally we get like a month and a half to shine before they nerf us. So let's have a good time and not squander it, guys.
Yeah, enjoy it. All of the Feral rerollers. One more time, thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it, and have an amazing rest of the weekend and an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful. See you around.
Oh, the best people. The best people, guys. There you have it. Those are the best people. The best people I know, other than Ruggs, but Ruggs made an appearance and Mr. Wobbles made an appearance. One more time. Also, if you guys missed it before this, we had a talk with a lot of the DKs talking about the future of Death Knights and how Blood Death Knights can actually be the #1 DPS single target in ICC. It literally will be the #1 DPS DK spec if they fix the bugs, which is crazy because Unholy DKs will have to have a dual spec for that. But I'm really excited on that chat. Really excited for all of the Feral Chads to really go crush it. Here's your jam again. Feral's pumping. Everyone, thank you for all the subs today. Thank you for all the follows today. I hope you had a great day. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I will be back one more time this weekend. I've been doing some streams on weekends for something a little bit special, guys. This weekend, on Sunday, we continue our journey of our 1.8 million gold Death Knight. Yes, that's right. The gear on this DK has been 1.8 million gold spent. None of it was earned by me, to be brutally honest. That's just a thing. Just shout out to the Imagine Carrying GDKPs on Benediction and for supporting the ridiculousness of my brand new Death Knight. We continue that journey Sunday, 5 p.m. PST. Mount is included as one of those items that was bought for 400,000 gold and then traded to me. Let's fucking go, boys. All right, everyone, have an amazing rest of the weekend. And honestly, just one more time, thank you guys for being here. I'm going to go eat for the first time today. We've been live for almost 8 hours, and I've been up for at least 10 hours, and I forgot to eat. So, peace.